Okay, welcome everybody to today's SYB webinar. Am I still sharing my screen? Can everyone? Yeah, okay, great, thank you. Oh, and let me turn on my camera so everyone can see my beautiful face. Welcome to today's SYB webinar. You might have already heard rumblings about what we're talking about today. ECI Development, a premier real estate company specializing in residential and investment opportunities across Central and Latin America, is now pioneering low EMF living with their Isla development in Nicaragua. And today we've assembled 4 of the key players to explain exactly what this development is, how it came about, how it's being designed, how it's being tested, and what low EMF actually means. So we'll get started with short 5-minute presentations from each of these 4 individuals, and then we'll get to all of your questions. So if you have any questions, either now or when you hear these 4 people speaking, please type them into the Q&A pod. The chat pod is open, but please feel free to use it for chatting. But if you have questions that you want answered in the Q&A session, please type them into the Q&A pod. So with that, we're going to get started with Michael Cobb. He is the CEO of ECI Development, a seasoned development company with 28 years of experience constructing residential resort communities across Belize, Nicaragua, Panama, and Costa Rica. And Mike, I'm going to hand it off to you.
Terrific. All right. Well, let me see if I can get the screen share going here, and we'll take it away. Appreciate really getting us together today, and it's a great group of folks. I'm really pleased to have everyone who's been a really foundational part of this project with us today. Karen Rich is here, Grant Montgomery, and Cathy Cooke, and I'll let them all talk for themselves. But the fact of the matter is, it's a team, and it's an incredible team that's pulled this together, and it is truly something new and unique in the marketplace. So I'm just going to take this 5 minutes. I'm going to kind of do a very high-level overview of the country of Nicaragua. I'm not sure how many of you have been to Nicaragua. I hope some of you have, but I hope that many of you will choose to come visit and see the country for yourself and see what's available and what kind of lifestyle and what kind of community is possible there. So the country itself is just north of Costa Rica. You heard us talking about the medical care and the dental care there, and south of Honduras. Extremely varied in the geography, from ancient cities, 500-year-old cities. It has the Caribbean coast, it has the Pacific coast, volcanoes, mountains, cloud forests. The types of activities that you can engage in are just incredible, all the way across the board. Again, both oceans, a lot of surfing, beautiful swimming beaches. This is a picture of my family. We lived down there for 14 years, raised our girls there, and just had a tremendous experience living in Nicaragua. And what we find is that when people come to visit, it's like a bug that bites them, and they want to come back. And Cathy will tell you she was there in January for her first visit, and here it is April, and she's back, and I think she's looking forward to coming back again and again and again. So it really is a country that pulls you in, and once you're there, holds you emotionally at a heart level. Just wonderful things to do. We always like to talk about our turtle preservation program as well, but these are the kinds of activities that pull people together. You can see a whole group of residents and property owners, and even some of the guests who come out with their children and families to come out and release the baby turtles. But these kinds of activities begin to create a sense of community. And here are Grant and Sasha accepting keys to their brand new home. We're very excited that they've actually been living at Grand Pacifica now for 3 years, but they have a new home that's about a year old, and just wonderful folks, again, families and people coming down to live this healthier lifestyle. And certainly low EMF is one element of this healthier lifestyle. But Cathy and Grant will talk some more about some of the other elements that go into this healthy lifestyle, and it can be everything from eating fish right out of the ocean, eating eggs and chicken and beef that are hormone free and free range, organic fruits and vegetables. We have orchards on site. We have a whole neighborhood that's been planted with fruit trees and plantains. So again, creating this environment where you can live a healthier lifestyle, and it's just wonderful to see folks engaging in that and being a part of it. Isla is the name of the neighborhood that we have created. Although what we're finding now is that a lot of folks want to move sooner rather than later. And so many of our neighborhoods will really suit people who are looking to move to a much healthier environment. The Isla neighborhood, as you can see, is very, very close to the beach, about 600 yards. Here's a picture of Cathy out taking measurements. And if you know your EMF, these are extremely low readings, 4 microwatts per square meter. So very, very low readings naturally. And that's before Grant and Cathy get together and create homes that mitigate the EMF even further. Some beautiful home designs that Grant has put together, along with the consulting of Cathy, the building biologist, to make sure that many of the elements in the homes not are just beautiful, but actually contribute to the mitigation of EMFs as well. Price points on home sites starting at about $70,000. Complete home packages under $200,000. Some beautiful homes in the 2-bedroom, 2-bath in the 3s. So again, kind of price points across the range for lots of folks to make it affordable and accessible for folks that want to be there. The other thing that will happen is some of the properties will be available for rent. So if you're not looking to actually own a home, or maybe you can't afford to own a home, renting at Isla and Grand Pacifica will certainly be an option.
Or if you want to test it before making the full commitment.
My goodness, absolutely. We highly encourage people to come visit, of course, and then to rent for 6 months to a year before you buy. And we actually have programs where you can rent while your home is being built as well. So again, making it very, very accessible. But yes, come check it out before you move in. And then expanding our food programs with the Food Forest Abundance folks, Jim Gale, and his program to actually create this more permanent food sustainability as part of the community. This is whiskey. This is someone already enjoying some very, very low EMF healthy living. It's Grant and Sasha's dog, and we're just really, really happy that folks are there. We do take crypto. I know many folks in this community are part of the larger crypto community, and financing is also available for folks as well. Speaking of coming to visit, please, we have tours that are group tours, and they're nice because you get a lot of folks who feel the same way about healthy living that you do. You'll all be there together. We run around, we have fun, we do some great things. But if these dates don't work, we're certainly happy to have you come visit us anytime that's right for you. So that's it. I'm going to hand it back to you, R, and let you pick it up from here.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mike. Okay, so next we have Karen Rich. And Karen is an activist for health and freedom. After almost a decade of being diagnosed with everything from Lyme disease to MS to bipolar disorder to adult autism syndrome, it was finally determined she was being sickened by the Wi-Fi EMF in her home environment. Karen began spreading awareness about the harms caused by EMFs, and Karen is the originator of the idea that has become Isla. So with that, Karen, I don't know, do you have any slides you want to share, or?
I do not.
Okay, so please proceed.
Okay, thank you, Art. It's nice to see you. Hey, Grant. Hey, Cathy. Mike, nice job on the presentation. So thank you. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
So I'm Karen. In 2003, as R said, I became EMF sick from living in a smart home. It was kind of before the term was even known. My boyfriend was a robotics engineer, and he kind of created this house for us. And when I moved in, I felt terrific. I owned and operated 3 yoga centers. I swam. I hiked with my dogs every day. I ate organic food. I mean, I felt well. I think I looked well. And so little by little, as my health started to slip away from me and nobody could figure out why, it was a frustrating time. The recovery has definitely been tedious, but I think I've got some momentum at this point and excited about the idea of Isla, not just for me, but for other people, because this is a really, it's a very interesting situation to be in when you become hypersensitive to EMFs. I don't wish it on anybody. I do think to some degree or another, it will start happening to almost everybody. They'll become symptomatic in one way or another, and that's not to scare anybody. I'm just always hoping people would be mindful of Wi-Fi hygiene. So with that said, I came across not necessarily Isla or Grand Pacifica initially. I came across a video about Eva, which is the tiny home on Grand Pacifica. And I thought, wow, these look cute. This place looks great. And I called and I spoke with Mike's property manager at the time. And I kind of just said, here's what I have in mind. And is there any way that you can do this? And he went to Mike. They did quite a bit of due diligence and came back to me with the answer that yes, we can. And the reason, and Mike can go into this more than I can, but the reason that this can happen so easily in Isla is because ECI has owned the property for 30 years. So the infrastructure already exists for the Ethernet, for connecting through the internet and connecting through the phone. So that made it a no-brainer. And then the ECI team went out and scouted different sites on the property, the 2,500 acre property. And they discovered the Isla site, which I was really happy to be down there and to see. It's magical. It's wonderful. It's a teak forest surrounded by hills, about 10 minutes walking distance from an absolutely amazing beach. It's a black lava sand beach, which has very special grounding qualities to it. Very healthful. Swimming in the ocean feels wonderful. It's very healthful. The sun, of course, I'm very much of a sun person. So that's a big nourishment for me, is to be in the sun. So with all of that information, I don't know that I have anything else more to say other than to thank Mike for the due diligence that he did do, and to come back with the option. We're really hoping to make this happen. Cathy and Grant are a huge part of it. There's so many players. It's an amazing team, and it's an exciting project. We hope people get as excited about it as we do, not only for health reasons, but also for community reasons, to be with like-minded and like-hearted others, and for freedom reasons. You know, a place to all really thrive together with people who care about the same things that we care about. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Karen. And next up, we have Grant Montgomery. Grant is an architect with nearly 20 years of professional experience. A bulk of that time has been spent working on high-rise multifamily building types. For the last few years, he has been living full-time in Nicaragua, and there he has appended his experience with more single-family home designs. Hey, Grant.
Hi, good afternoon. Thanks again for having us.
Yeah, of course. No, thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a licensed architect in the United States, and I've been living abroad for almost 8 years now, and still do some work in the US, do some work here as well. And, you know, my wife and I were always very aware that, you know, we wanted to try and keep our environment very clean and healthy. So we were always shutting off the Wi-Fi in our house, hardwiring our computers and things, from at least from the time that we got together. And when we left the United States, we were traveling very frequently, and boy, did that open up our world to having to figure out more and more about how to deal with EMFs, because every city we went to, every Airbnb we rented, every hotel we stayed at had different types of problems that we had to deal with. And so I'm not a building biologist, which, you know, would be a downside to this project, which is why we hired Cathy, obviously. But, you know, on the upside is that I've had all these different years of actually dealing with it myself, trying to mitigate different environments, trying to test out different products and whatnot. So having a really good understanding of what can be done, what should be done in the home design and in terms of lifestyle as well, that kind of information really put me in the right place to be able to support a project like this. And then under happenstance, I was in Grand Pacifica and helping out with various projects here and there. And when Isla came up, it was really a natural fit that, you know, they needed an architect and they needed someone who understood the specific requirements of this type of design. And so we've been here and working on this project ever since.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Grant. I have a bunch of questions for you, but we have one more here, and that is Cathy Cooke. For most of you in attendance today, I'm sure Cathy needs no introduction because she is such a vibrant part of the SYB community, but she is briefly a certified building biology environmental consultant and certified electromagnetic radiation specialist through the Building Biology Institute. And she is currently not doing any work and relaxing in Nicaragua. Hi, Cathy.
Hi, that's right. I'm here just doing nothing. Actually, no, I'm down here to do some testing on the property again. And I was actually up in the mountains, I guess you'd call them mountains in the hills, last week testing another property, which was a coffee farm, which is very interesting. So I took the opportunity to come down here and get some more measurements, and it's been really great. So I know your community obviously is aware of the 4 fields that we test for EMF. And so, you know, my involvement in the Isla community is just to make sure that these levels stay as humanly possible, as low as humanly possible. And they look really great. So like Mike showed earlier, the average numbers that I was getting inside of the proposed community is, you know, usually it was under 1 microwatt per square meter, which is obviously ideal. And then, you know, in certain places we had higher peaks, so that made the average increase a little bit. But overall, when we averaged all that together, between 1 and 4 microwatts per square meter outdoors, pretty incredible. And then, you know, inside the buildings, of course, I fully expect to get to 0 or, you know, under 5 pretty much everywhere. So the majority of people, that's going to be a dramatic improvement. And, you know, we know that for some exquisitely sensitive people, even 1 microwatt per square meter is too much. For the rest of us that, you know, are living in the cities and are bombarded with all the things all over the place, this is going to be ideal situation, because we're going to be hard pressed to find lower numbers in most of the world these days. So, you know, that's the radio frequency component. And then we've got the electric fields, magnetic fields, and dirty electricity, which of course we can't test yet because the community is not built. But as a proxy, I've been, you know, testing some of the other houses and properties on the area. And it's very interesting with the concrete structures that they're building here. A lot of these fields are mitigated just by the wall structure. So when we run the wires through the walls, and they're these very dense walls, I'm getting very low readings across the board. So there's an innate shielding capacity with the wall structure as it is. Of course, there are going to be some further considerations that we're going to do here, because the buildings will have, you know, mini splits, which is air conditioning, which can be a point source of dirty electricity, lighting fixtures, things like that, that we are taking into account. And we're looking at filtering as well as shielding the wires. So we're going to put all of the building biology concepts into these buildings to make them, you know, as low as possible across the board. So like I said, for the majority of people, it's going to be a vast improvement. If I could give up my business in the States and, work remotely 100% of the time, I would definitely be looking at purchasing one of these. Unfortunately, my business is in the US, so I can't do that right now. But from a health perspective and building biology perspective, I feel very good about it. And then there's the whole air quality side as well, which, we can get into if you want, and if we want to answer some questions about that. Air quality is hugely important to me. So we've been having a lot of conversations about humidity and moisture control, proper ventilation, building materials so that we reduce those VOCs and off-gassing and chemical exposure. Right now in development is rules, and Mike or Grant might want to talk more about this, but putting rules into place so actually nobody in the community can have a cell phone in use in the neighborhood. Nobody can have Wi-Fi in their houses. Nobody can have a sound bar and Bluetooth. So you're not going to get bombarded from your neighbors, right? And I'm really happy about that, so that there are these rules in place so that you will truly be in this safe community. So a lot of things happening here to keep the neighborhood as healthy as possible. And yeah, it's been awesome. I'm super grateful to Karen for spearheading this and getting it going. And then for Mike for saying yes. It's been an incredible experience, and the whole ECI team and Grant has been awesome. So I'm really excited about it.
Excellent. Thank you all for those introductions to the project. We're now going to get into Q&A, and I'm going to kick us off because Cathy, I've basically been a part of this journey with you. I mean, I'm not involved in the project at all, but I've been talking to you since you got started in the project. And I think an interesting place to start that might be instructive for people is at first, you were quite circumspect about the project, both from an EMF perspective and from what's about Nicaragua perspective. And you've definitely converted in that time. So maybe if you can tell people a little bit about your own journey, going from being circumspect to wanting to live there.
Yeah, that's a good question. So, about a year ago, I think was around the time that I was first introduced to the project. And, when you get a phone call or an email and someone says, a US development company wants to create this community in another country, you're suspicious, like what's in it for them? Like, there's got to be, a cost benefit here. And how is this, why would a development company be interested? Was my first question. Because as most of us have experienced over the years, most businesses aren't really jumping on the low EMF bandwagon, right? It's the opposite. If it can have an EMF or a Wi-Fi Bluetooth in it, it's gonna have it in it, right? So it was different than my experience. I mean, being a building biologist for 7 years now, it's more and more and more and more and more, and we're not getting approached by people that are like, hey, maybe we should step it back a little. So, obviously I was skeptical, but that in this situation, ECI and Mike have the true sincerity that, hey, we want to develop this community specifically for these people, people like us who want to live a healthier lifestyle. And amazing that a company has that intent.
Yeah.
So it took me some time to, meet with the team and learn about the project and talk to folks to go, I think they're legit. Awesome. And so, of course, coming down and seeing the property, you see this picture of the ocean, and it's kind of hard not to want to live there.
So, and questions are starting to come into the Q&A pod, so I'll get to those in a second. There's one more I want to ask, but take advantage of my role as moderator, throw my own ones in there. But as a reminder to everybody, if you have questions, please type them into the Q&A pod. And so, Mike, this question popped up in my head when Karen was talking, which is, I can imagine a lot of developers getting a call or an email from Karen saying, "Hey, you should build a low EMF community," and then they're just laughing and ignore it. What made you and ECI see an email like that or a call? I don't know what it was, and say, "Huh, that's interesting. Let's look into it."
Are a great question. You know, we have always been outside the box as a company. You know, as an individual, I think I'm pretty outside the box, and as a company, our corporate culture is the same. And we've served, you know, hundreds and hundreds of people. It's actually, you know, now over 1,000 folks who were looking for a second residency outside their home country, US, Canada, Australia, Europe, England, whatever, other countries, right? And so we've always been outside the norm, so to speak. And so, you know, that's one element. We've also served a huge freedom community and a crypto community, and people, again, that for many years crypto was really, you know, kind of just out there wacky, and then El Salvador made it legal tender, and all of a sudden it's a little more mainstream. I don't know if it's mainstream, but you know, a country adopted as a currency, right? But we've been taking crypto now for 7 years, and so, you know, that element, the freedom element, serving people who want to live in a freer environment, and so we've served them. And so when Karen came to us, and the health aspect too, right? I mean, we've always had a high level of agricultural production on the property. When I lived in Nicaragua, one of the things that my family and I truly enjoyed and appreciated was the fact that we could get this huge bag of organic fruits and vegetables. We get it loaded up with meats and cheeses and other things too, but just the vegetables and produce, the fruits and vegetables in a coffee sack delivered to our house every week for $8, right? And so we were living this incredibly healthy lifestyle. And so we've served folks who want to live this healthier lifestyle as well. And when Karen came, I got to say, I was intrigued. Truthfully, my curiosity was piqued, and that's really what happened. She got me thinking about it. I asked some questions. We went back and forth a little bit, and as I started to peel the layers of the onion off, the EMF thing specifically, like, you know, look. I think, Karen, you said this the other day. I don't remember whose podcast you were quoting. You said, look, it's not like you're EMF sensitive. That's kind of like saying you're arsenic sensitive, right? Right. I love this. Karen, she comes up with some great stuff and feeds it into her Facebook page. By the way, if you're not on her Facebook page, get on it. I mean, she's got so much content. She's posting new content all the time on the Facebook page. But like this idea of sensitivity versus symptomatic, right? Or reactive, right? And so as I started to peel the layers of the onion up, I said to myself, there is no way you can stick something up to your head that's full of, you know, radiation, right? Light waves, radio waves, whatever it is, right? I mean, there's no way you can put something up next to your head and it's not doing something, right? What that something is, I think, you know, lots of people want to debate that, right? Especially the phone companies. But the point is that having radiation go through cellular material does something. And the fact that so many of these big phone companies and FCC and you know, the entrenched interests, I don't know what else to call them, but let me just call them the entrenched interests, are really saying, hey, you know, it's the Wizard of Oz, don't look behind the curtain, right? You know, just stay over here. And so this really, to me, actually became a bullhorn. And I heard it loud and clear. And again, I started to peel the onion back, and I'm like, wow, there is really something vitally important here. And then to go one step further, you know, we are in the service business, and our business is to serve folks who want, in this case, a community that will take care of them, a sanctuary for recovery and health. And so it just fits so well in with what we're already doing. But I thank Karen for putting up with me early on with a million questions, because again, I was just trying to peel the layer of the onion back, and Karen was great and patient and really helped with podcasts and links and other things to get me to understand what's happening. So,
and Karen, when did you bring this idea to ECI?
It was about a year and a half ago.
Oh, wow. So this is really fast.
Yeah, we've been working very hard to get some traction. And to Mike's credit, when I did have a Zoom meeting with him, which I think Brandon arranged, and a couple of other people on the ECI executive team, they all kept a straight face. We're talking about it because, you know, the Ava community, which had originally caught my eye, it's super cute, but it was featuring smart home technology. So
Yeah.
my question to Mike's team was, can you build us a little community just like this, but the opposite of smart home technology? And of course, they had all the infrastructure in place. So I don't know, you or Peter said something to the effect. So you're asking us to build a neighborhood like we would have done 20 years ago? And it's like, exactly,
Yep.
exactly. And
Yeah,
the
and
infrastru-
I used to live in a tiny home, and I know from my experience researching them, and so those can have a lot of EMF issues because distance is just not possible in a tiny
tight.
home setting. Yeah.
Well, and especially when they're featuring smart home technology,
Yeah.
which a lot of people want. I was asking for something that was the opposite of that. And because the infrastructure's on the property, Mike was able to say, yeah, absolutely, no big deal. And then the secondary thing that happened was just finding that magical teak forest.
So yeah, we have actually questions about the teak forest too, but the one I want to start with here from Jonathan, and this is I think both for Cathy and Grant. I'm sorry, I'm still getting used to my new glasses. Pardon me. Negative health effects of EMFs and mold exposure go hand in hand. What are some of the considerations that have been made in the home design to mitigate mold growth, especially in such a humid environment?
Sure. I mean, it definitely is a hot and humid environment down here, being near the tropics. And, to the benefit, a lot of the materials that we use in the homes don't include materials that inhibit or that contribute to mold growth. There's not a food source in a lot of the materials we use. We're using concrete block walls with concrete or cement plaster finishes. The roofing is a metal structure with a metal roof, and then the houses that we've designed at least has a terracotta clay tile roof, but that's outside of the primary envelope being the metal roof. So a lot of the things, especially on the interior of the home, are already designed to not really allow mold to grow very well. We like to use tile on the floors, and for sure tiles in the showers and things in the places where you normally would have moisture problems. And then, that's the main home design. And then when it comes to really controlling mold and mildew problems, is actually on the user side. It's the owner side and how you live your lifestyle, ventilating, making sure that you're opening your windows on a regular basis to flush things out, maintaining your air conditioners if you're using them. And, making sure that if you're not going to be there for a couple of weeks, that somebody's coming in to air it out for you a couple of times while you're gone. All those things really help. If when your house sits stagnant, that's when the problems really start to occur, at least down here, because we're not building like a stud wall with the fat insulation inside where mold is suddenly like, hey, it's cold inside with the air conditioner and hot out here. There's a line of moisture that suddenly appears and we're going to sit here and we're just going to feast. It doesn't exist in the types of homes and the types of materials that we're using down here.
And Cathy, you're not only a mold expert, you're also sensitive to mold. What's your experience been like in the community?
It's good. So it's, a couple days ago when I was up at the coffee farm, there's a lot of mold there. It's very, very, it's the jungle, more or less. It's very humid. But there were some building failures there in the place I was staying. For example, they put plastic coverings over the windows because they get these little tiny bugs, and then they closed up the windows, and for, I don't know, weeks at a time, you get mold growth there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So with the knowledge, like Grant was just talking about here, I have not had that problem at all in Grand Pacifica. So I've been really happy so far with that. With the buildings that already exist, I have not noticed a mold problem at all. And, with the Isla community, we're going to even take further steps, primarily because our community, the community that would buy these buildings needs and wants that. So increased ventilation, increased exhaust fans and dehumidification and that kind of stuff. So I feel good about that.
Excellent. Thank you.
And R,
Yes.
just to let you know about the mold issue, I stayed for 3 weeks in the Ava community when I visited last year, and I literally had no problem. None.
Excellent.
So, yeah.
It's good hearing from people who are actually both sensitive and have experienced the environment.
Yeah. So I just wanted to add that in. And I know, as Grant says, that it exists, but with strategic ventilation and the plans that they have for the architecture and the building materials, I just can't imagine it being that huge of a problem.
Thank you. There's a question here that I know Cathy is going to have an answer to. After being exposed to radiation poisoning 4 years ago, I'm just starting to feel better. However, I don't know if I could handle the plane ride. Any ideas? I would move there immediately.
I have lots of ideas. In fact, I have a whole course just on this.
It's true. Yeah.
At healthiertech.com.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Actually,
I'm really
let
passionate.
me bring that up so people can see that. Please go on.
Cool. I'm really passionate about this question because I love to travel, and the plane ride can really knock me down. And so, you know, I got into this field because I would say mildly sensitive on the spectrum. But I was noticing that I was avoiding traveling. The older I got, the more and more I avoided travel, and I just don't want to live like that. So I just put all of my resources basically into this course about how can we fly while mitigating our exposure plus helping the body be more resilient. So things that I do, I have a poncho, a shielded poncho that I made that I travel with, which helps tremendously. I take certain supplements to combat the oxidative stress from the EMF radiation. You know, managing your blood sugar while traveling, there's a lot you can do. You know, not to say that if you're exquisitely sensitive, you're not going to feel any symptoms at all. But if you focus on really helping the body be resilient, and that means managing stress, eating properly so you manage your blood sugar, appropriate supplementation, plus some shielding, and then grounding when you get to your destination. Those are the big pieces that have really helped a lot.
Yeah, because you flew down there from Idaho, meaning there's not a direct Boise to Managua flight. So you had a journey.
Yeah, I was going to mention that too. So I had to go, this time I had to go to Phoenix, to Miami, to Managua. So I left my house at 5 in the morning and landed at 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. or something. But if you're not that close, you can kind of chunk the journey, right? Fly to Miami, stay a night or two to make it a little easier, and then take the last flight, which is only like 2.5 hours or something. So there's a lot of different ways to do it. You know, it's all going to depend really on our individuality, but I would say at a minimum, that shielding, you know, a good poncho can be really, really helpful.
And Cathy's course that she mentioned you're seeing it here on the screen, and I put the link in the chat, and that's on the Healthier Tech site, healthiertech.co.
We have had some.
Oh, yeah.
We've had some owners who have actually driven down. Yep. All the way from Canada.
Isn't that kind of insane, though?
It is kind of insane, but it's doable. Some countries are better than others for quality of roads, or sometimes one of the current guests we have here, he drove down and he was running into issues with protests in that particular country, and so there can be problems, but it is possible to drive down. I have not looked into it, but there's probably some way to come down by sea. And that might be something even for a group of people to get together, charter a little boat, come down and manage that way. I think when it comes to travel, the biggest thing is just to have realistic expectations about it as well. Like, understand, like, no matter how much I prepare myself for this, how many things I do, I'm probably going to need a day or two to recover, at least, to get back to where I had been before I left. And if you have that in mind, then you're not planning a 3-day vacation knowing that 2 days are going to be lost. and I think that would help people as well.
So Mike, here's one for you. Sharon asks, what is the average rent value per month for a 2-bedroom house?
I know some of the Ava homes, which are 1-bedroom, and some have a loft as a 2nd bedroom. They run in that $900 a month, depending on how many months that you want to rent. I think a 2-bedroom home might be $900 to $1,100 a month, if I had to just take a guess off the top of my head.
Thank you. And Cathy, how does that compare to rent in Boise, Idaho?
Anywhere else.
So much cheaper.
So Jim asks, and I'm not sure who wants to answer this one, what energy/building codes do you incorporate? Who does the inspections? What's the regulatory regimen that applies to this development?
Let me take a broad sweep, and then Grant can probably drill down a lot more specifically. The building permits are issued by the local municipality. So we would call it a county, but the local municipal government issues the building permits. The reality, however, is that nobody will ever come and inspect. There are no building inspections. And in fact, I wrote a book recently. It's coming out in a couple weeks. It's called, How to Buy Your Home Overseas and Get It Right the First Time. And one of the things that we talk about in the book is how critically important it is to have your own advocate, your own engineer, to be the building inspector. And Grant has done those services for many clients at Grant Pacifica, because in this case he's working with us on Isla, but he is an independent third party, and so if somebody's building a home, he has done the inspection. So it is critically important, I believe, to have a third party do those, because there is no building inspector. The one thing that they do have are excellent codes. The natural disaster there on the Pacific coast is earthquake. It's the same fault. It's the Ring of Fire, right? Same fault line that runs from Alaska down to Chile through California, right? It is what it is. But the codes in Nicaragua are phenomenal. They're a combination of the California seismic code and the Japanese code. And so it's extremely effective seismic code. The issue is your home being built to that code? Is it being engineered to the code, designed, architecturally, engineering wise? And then is it being built to that standard? And so again, having somebody to verify those things on your behalf becomes critically important, because the municipality is never sending a building inspector out. But Grant, you can maybe talk more specifically to some of the technicalities of that.
Yeah, I think that making sure that your structural engineer is a company that's based in Nicaragua and really understands those codes. If you're designing your own home, if you're going to do a custom home, for example, that's really, really important. And from looking at the structural drawings myself, or some of the other people here who we have on site who can do these kinds of inspections and things for you, they understand how, what size rebar is supposed to go in the concrete, how big the columns are, and things like that. So they can check seismically at least what it is. My experience being an architect in the United States, I've worked in Florida, I've worked in California, I've worked in Hawaii. Like, a lot of these places have very, very specific and very stringent codes when it comes to earthquakes and hurricanes. And I apply a lot of those to the things that we design here. So even whatever the Nicaraguan building code might say, I'm still designing something to the standard that we would expect in the United States, at least on paper, because that's what I understand. And I know that that's going to be even better than what's required here. When it comes to the electrical systems, personally, I know a little bit less than that on that subject, but enough to be able to check to make sure things are being done properly. And Cathy also has some knowledge on things like making sure the shielded cables are used, and things of that nature.
Thank you. Here's I think it should be a quick question. It's a good one. Christine asks, will the teak trees be cut in the future?
Yes, some of the teak trees will be cut in the future. However, there's a buffer along the edge of the Isla community where they will not be cut. They'll be thinned through the whole process. They're planted 1 meter apart initially to get tall, straight trees. So there's a thinning that goes on really for the first maybe 22, 23 years. Every, say, 5 to 8 years, there's a thinning, but there will always be a buffer of teak along Isla. And then as the trees are harvested, further away, they will be replanted. That's part of the reforestation incentive. And so that buffer will always be there, plus the replanting of the trees that are harvested further away from Isla as well.
Thank you. Now, here's a question. I believe it came from Peter. What about personal safety in the country? U.S. State Department warns about traveling and living in the country, especially as U.S. citizens. Now, I actually want to take a crack at starting to answer this question, because someone actually emailed me this question yesterday when they saw about. Actually, they didn't email me the question. They said, no, Nicaragua is dangerous. And I know this because in my experience in Panama, there's a lot of people say, oh, is it safe to live there? So what I did is I found this URL and emailed it to the fellow. This is a site that compares crime statistics from around the world. So here's Nicaragua in the United States. Crime levels ranked 30th. United States is 26% more crime than Nicaragua. Drugs. 12 times more than Nicaragua. Murder rate, where are we? Violent crime, 12 times more than Nicaragua. Violent crime murder rate, 17 times more than Nicaragua. Now, where there, Nicaragua does stand out, and this is common in Central America, is property crime. Property crime is much more rampant throughout Central America and in many parts of the world than it is in the United States. But violent crime is much, much lower in countries like Nicaragua and Panama and even Costa Rica, which is having something of a surge in crime. It's just way lower. It's so much safer in most of the rest of the world than in the United States. The United States is the most violent industrialized democracy in the world by a wide, wide margin. Now, with that, I don't know if I did justice to the answer, but if any of you want to kind of chime in.
Please don't confuse me with the facts, okay? No, look, two things. One, I wish I had my father-in-law, before he passed away, he got me a T-shirt, and it's a picture of a Native American, and it says, if you think you can trust your government, ask a Native American, okay? and if I had that T-shirt, I'd hold it up right now because the State Department says it's dangerous. Okay, if you believe that, then don't come to Nicaragua. Really, don't come, right? But if you would rather trust your own judgment, and I think that the people who tend to move overseas believe in their own judgment, right? So I would say, come visit, see it for yourself. If you think it's dangerous, go home as fast as you can and never come back, right? But if you think it's so dangerous you don't want to come, then by all means, don't come. It's not right for you. And that's the point, right? That not everything's right for everybody. But I raised my wife's a blondie, and I had 2 tow-headed daughters. We did not look Nicaraguan at all. I mean, at all. Okay. I travel a couple weeks a month and have always traveled 2 to 3 weeks a month. I would leave my family in Nicaragua, my wife and 2 small daughters in Nicaragua. They would drive up to, I think where you were, Cathy, that coffee plantation. They went up there, they went out looking for butterfly garden or butterfly, farms out in the middle of the jungle, and they'd break down, they get stuck. I mean, they had flat tires in Managua, and people would pull over and help change the tire, right? In 14 years of living in Nicaragua, 0 incidences, 0. And so just to take it one step further, crime is usually local. If you say Nicaragua, that's meaningless, right? That's like saying, what's the crime in Chicago? Well, depends on where in Chicago, right? And so, I think that Nicaragua for us was a very safe country. Grant, you and Sasha have lived in Nicaragua for 3 years. I think you would, well, I'm not going to speak for you, speak. I mean, I think you guys feel very safe, don't you?
Absolutely, without a doubt. I mean, it's one of the safest places we've ever lived. And then you take into account you're in Grand Pacifica, which is like it's separate from everything else as well.
Is it
And-
gated? Is Grand Pacifica gated or open?
Well, we have a gate. You got to drive through. They raise the bar and lower the bar.
Okay.
But there's no, I mean, we have a barbed wire fence around the property to keep the neighbors' cattle out and some of our cattle in. But no, it's not walled in any sense. I mean, there's a gate to drive through to get onto the property. The good thing is though, that we do have security. We have, I don't know, 15 or so security guys, and they ride around on bicycles. They have whistles. A couple of the guys at the gate are armed, right? But the vast majority of our security guys literally ride around on bicycles. We have a few on horseback. We have a couple rangers that patrol the entire 2,500 acres on horseback. I think they're armed. But like literally, like, yeah, it's a gated community. It's a secure community. How's that? It's a secure community, but it's not a walled community. And
I didn't mean to make it sound bad. I was just asking.
but people make that assumption, right? And by the way, about 20% of our property owners are Nicaraguan, right? Yeah, about 20, close to 25, I think, but somewhere in 20 to 25% are Nicaraguan.
Yeah. Yeah, we see that, you know, if there's any problems, I think we've had maybe 3 crimes in the 3 years that we've been here, and they're always crimes of opportunity. You know, somebody was at the restaurant on a busy weekend, left their phone on a table when they jumped in the pool, and their phone disappeared. Like, there are guests around. It's not just your normal residents in your neighborhood, and that person made a mistake and paid for it, and that was a crime of opportunity. We have never, as far as I know, had somebody actually like break down a door, break a window or something to get into a home. We don't have bars on our windows like you see in a lot of Central American and other countries. And, you know, we took a trip for 4 nights, I think, to another city a little bit further north from here, and they have no tourist industry to speak of whatsoever. And we were walking around, 4 of us with 2 dogs on all the back roads at night in the dark, and like it was as if it was our own country, as if it was our own neighborhood, our own backyard. Nobody ever hassled us. There was never any even slight feeling of angst. You know, is somebody following me? Is someone watching me? Nothing like that really exists.
Thank you.
And with any country, like, be smart about it. You know, if you're going to go let yourself be taken advantage of, then that's usually when crimes do happen.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's parts of Managua you don't want to be in at night, just like in Panama City and any city.
Yeah.
I think there's another aspect of this too that's important to keep in mind. I know Mike does not like talking about politics. I love talking about politics. And I think people need to be mindful that the USA has had a narrative about Nicaragua and other Central and South American countries that portrays them to be very violent. And that narrative is by design, and what is said does not necessarily match the reality. And I would invite anybody who really has a deep concern about this issue to go onto a Facebook page called Expat Life in Nicaragua. And it's thousands and thousands of people from all over the world who have expatted to Nicaragua, and they love it. And certainly will tell you the truth if they've had any horrible experiences with crime. But that's a good way to check out what these expats have experienced after they've moved in the way of anything scary, crime.
Thank you.
Not that it doesn't happen, but I think it's a good resource.
Can you put that URL in the chat, please? That would be.
See if I know how to do that.
Genoa asks, as an over 70-year-old person, I'm wondering what healthcare services are available. How far away from an international airport, and why are so many Nicaraguans leaving the country to try to get to the USA? Let's answer that last one first. I mean, the answer is for economic opportunity. That's why people migrate generally. Not the case for US expats. US expats are generally looking for more freedom, more comfort, more affordability. But around the world, when people migrate, it is for economic opportunity. So that said, let's get to the other questions, which is what healthcare services are available? How far away from an international airport?
You know, when we lived there, we did all of our medical care in Nicaragua, and the hospital that we picked was the Vivian Pellis. You know, maybe a way to frame the discussion is just using big demographic numbers, right? Nicaragua is a country with 6 million people, and 10% of the population is, you know, middle class or more, or maybe it's more than 10%, but 10% of the population is pretty well off. And maybe 5% are really, really, really well off, right? You know, right? And so if you just take 5% of 6 million, that's 300,000 people. And these people have real assets, real money. What they want is high quality medical care. And so it's just hard for people to imagine that Nicaragua would have a phenomenal hospital system. And it does. It was the Vivian Palace was the 13th hospital in all of Latin America to be JCI Gold accredited, Joint Commission International. So you've got excellent medical care. That's the positive side. The airport is about an hour and a half from Grand Pacifica. The hospital's probably an hour and 15 minutes from Grand Pacifica. That's the downside. When you get outside Managua, the major metropolitan area, the healthcare services, I say, drops off substantially. The local clinics in and around us are phenomenal at dealing with what I would call normal emergency medicine, right? I mean, the stuff that just happens, breaking arms, even heart attacks, things like that, right? But if you need chronic kinds of medical care, you're an hour and hour 15, hour and a half away from it.
Okay, so you're an hour, quarter hour and a half out of Managua.
Out of Managua. So, that it's not that far, but depending on how often you need it or the proximity, it could be an issue.
Thank you. Are pesticides needed for insect control in that climate?
We didn't, but Grant, you're down there now. What are y'all doing?
It's sort of hit or miss, to be honest. I think that obviously the chemicals exist and some homeowners choose to use it on their lots and some do not. You don't need to by any means, but there are certain times of year where like suddenly we'll have a bloom of mosquitoes, but within a week they're all gone and it's back to normal levels. It's just sort of how the normal cycle of the year goes. But personally in our house, we don't use pesticides and we haven't had any issues whatsoever.
Yeah, and I'll share my experience, which is that Avon Skin So Soft works really well against everything that I encounter in Central America. So that includes mosquitoes, the chitra, anything that would otherwise ruin your day is fended off by Avon Skin So Soft. And Cathy, does Avon Skin So Soft pass your test?
We'll talk later.
Okay. Well, it doesn't have DEET, so.
Right, it's a better option than DEET. Yeah. There's essential oils and stuff you can use too.
Yeah, to keep things out of our homes, we make mixes with like vinegar and lavender and mint essential oils, and we'll spray that around windowsills, door sills, or door thresholds rather, and really that keeps a lot of the bugs out. They don't like the odor. And we'll mop our floors with something with lavender essential oil in it as well, and same thing, it helps reduce anything that wants to come in and prevents them from doing that.
Jonathan asks, how is internet provided to the neighborhood? Is it fiber optic, cable? If it's cable, it's fiber. Okay, excellent. Thank you. Anonymous asks, are you making condos or apartments in Isla?
Homes, primarily single family homes, although we've talked about some connected home, which I guess would be more like townhouse as well. But the general plans at this point are for single family homes.
Jonathan also asks, and this is for Cathy, has there been testing done to make sure there are no magnetic fields due to the geographic area, power delivery, or grounding issues with metal pipes?
Yes. So most of the pipes here are plastic and PEX. I don't think there's any metal copper pipes anywhere.
Not that I'm aware of.
So the grounding issue with water lines is not a problem. And then I tested just as a proxy, the other areas that already exist to make sure that the loads are balanced and we're not getting high magnetic fields from the power lines and the service entrance or the service drop. And it's all been everywhere I've been in Nicaragua, I have not found a wiring error or a ground loop or anything of that nature yet. So
Oh, that's great.
very happy about that. So it seems to be that, the electricians here and the utility companies really know how to balance their distribution lines. And when I'm sure it exists, but I have not found it anywhere on the property or anywhere else that I've measured yet.
Okay, thank you. Here's one. I guess it's probably for Mike. People have talked. It's from Patricia. People have talked about establishing a refuge for literally decades now. This is the first time outside of Europe that I have seen real action. What has been the biggest hurdle?
I think the biggest hurdle has really been getting people to come visit. There are a lot of barriers to we talked about flying, and I'm really glad that Cathy's got the healthier flying resource kit, right? I mean, something like that makes it a lot easier for people to come visit. But I think that people are maybe skeptical, right? I mean, we are getting the word out, and webinars like this really do a tremendous job of helping people know that this even exists, right? So I think that because people have been wanting this for a while and it really hasn't happened, people are warming up slowly, but the number of people, it is definitely snowballing. I don't know. I think we're either right at about 1,000, maybe a little over 1,000 folks who have now inquired about the property since the beginning of the year. So really, Karen did approach us, whatever, a year and a half ago, but it, a lot of times, I think a lot of people go, ready, fire, aim, right? And this particular project is so important, and they're all important, but this one, because it's folks who are being really ignored throughout the world, right? It's critically important, and it's a need that's not being served anywhere else. The aim part was really important, and so once Karen and we engaged, and we got some of our engineers on site to look at different possibilities, and then got Grant involved, and then Cathy came on board to help work with us on what we're looking for, and then working with Grant on home designs, and then the measurement, right? So the aiming part took the better part of a year. So we've really only been bringing this to market in a big, and I would say fully developed way for about 3 months now. So I'm actually very happy with where we are. I think that the key is going to be to have people come visit, try it out, rent for a while, and just see what that lifestyle is really like. Before they take the big plunge. But
yeah, that's really great advice.
Yeah.
And I kind of assumed that would be your answer, because I mean, marketing in any aspect of this space is always such a challenge. Finding the right audience, knowing how to address that audience with the correct message, avoiding starting flame wars on social media and so forth. It's just a tricky balance, marketing in this space.
Right.
And I'm
And
really
Karen, by the
pleased
way,
to hear about the interest you found.
But also kudos to Karen. I mean, she has really pushed out into what I would call the broader communities. We have something I call Conversations with Cobb. She's had some tremendous folks come and be guests on that, join us for webinars. So, she, more than anyone in this organization, on this team, has really been pushing into the various communities to get the word out, and it's working.
Well done, Karen. That's a lot of work. Hold on here. There was one from chat. Yes. What are the prices of the homes that you are building?
The home site. So again, we will allow people to build their own homes. A lot of the rules and regulations have to do with the EMF, right? So again, no Wi-Fi in your home, no cell use, microwave ovens, things like that, right? So there's going to be some pretty specific rules that really protect your neighbors, right? Or protect all of us, protect the community. So a home site starts at $69,000, so $70,000, and any home that meets the design guidelines that really, again, are more about protection of our community will be allowed. So the price of the home can be pretty minimal in that respect. Grant has designed some beautiful home models along with Cathy, putting all of the utilities along an exterior wall, appliances on an exterior wall, setting up your living spaces so that your head is far away from any of the possible dirty electricity. Although, we hope to minimize that as well with the shielding and the balance loads and all that kind of stuff. But the home designs, and under 200,000, I think it's $182,000 for a small home, and then all the way up to pretty much, I hate to say whatever you want to spend.
Sky's the limit, yeah.
But yeah, right. Yeah.
And this is, I think, a good opportunity to talk about two things. One, and this is just, I think, just very brief, should be said, you offer financing. And the reason I think that's important to tell people is because if you're just moving to a country like Nicaragua or Panama or any of these countries where ECI does business, and you go and look for a home, you're not going to get a mortgage. No. But ECI does offer financing.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, I think your rate right now is better than what you can find in the States.
Yeah.
That's true too.
And then number two, this came up during someone's talk. I forget who, but Mike, you just brought it up again, which is, if you're building your own home, you can't have a microwave, you can't have Wi-Fi. And I want to kind of underscore, you're talking about legally enforceable provisions, right? Because you're tying these requirements to the deeds.
Yeah, correct. And you understand that, that's great. Not a lot of people.
Hearing it here first.
What was that, Karen?
He said, and he's hearing it here first. Here you go.
That's right. And so the type of title is called a horizontal property regime, HPR, and it's publicly registered title, so it's fee simple title in that sense, public title. But it's a type of title that does exactly what you said, It allows you to tie rules and regulations to the title of the property. Because look, the first transaction between you and me, for example, we have a contract and it says you're not allowed to do this and blah, 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 and that's fine. But if you sell the property to Cathy, right, I no longer have a contract with Cathy.
Oh, yeah, the Wi-Fi is going in overnight when Cathy takes over.
Yeah, exactly, right? Exactly. So anyway, so the good news is with this type of title, she is bound by the same rules that the original buyer was, and that's huge.
And just to underscore for everyone in the room, right? Every property in the Isla development is going to be legally bound to these types of restrictions, so you don't have to worry about your neighbor or selling a house to somebody and they then put in Wi-Fi.
Right.
Yep.
And those rules extend to renters, guests, landscapers, workers, like anybody who's actually in the physical boundaries of that neighborhood are all bound to these rules.
That's fantastic.
In every space, the public spaces, by the pool, in your front yard, all the same.
Okay, so Peter asks, what are the visa requirements? Let's start. I mean, let's assume everyone here, I'm not going to assume everyone here is American, but let's, for the purposes of answering this question, assume you're talking to an American. What are the visa requirements?
The retirement visa is very, very easy to get. 45 years or older and an income of, what is it now? I think they raised it. It was 600. It might be 800 now, or $850 a month. So you just have to be able to prove an income of, let's call it 900 to be safe, right? You have to prove a $900 a month income and be more than 45, and then you can be a retiree in Nicaragua. So that's probably, for anyone that meets those qualifications, the easiest and fastest way. They also have an investor residency program that they reinterpreted the regulations about 2 years ago, made it much more challenging, and we're working with the Ministry of Foreign Investment and the Immigration Department to reinterpret those. Right now, a home doesn't qualify as an investment. It did. They started to reinterpret things. So anyway, we're working with them, and hopefully they'll get that figured out. But in the immediate term, the retirement residency is absolutely the fastest and easiest way to go if you meet those two qualification points.
And just out of curiosity, do jubilados get discounts around the country?
I know in Panama they do. A tremendous program there, but I don't think so in Nicaragua.
Okay.
None that I'm aware of.
Yeah, in Panama, if you have one of these visas like you're talking about, you get discounts of 15 to 25% on everything from
Yep.
buses to movie tickets to airplane tickets to, pharmaceuticals. It's very nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so oh, and if you don't have a visa, how long if you don't have a
Oh.
residency, how long can you stay?
90 days, and then you can go down and have it. Grant, you did some of that at the beginning, right? You went and had your visas re-upped a few times.
Right, you get 90 days when you first come in, and that's good for the like 4 countries around. I think they have like a free travel area if you wanted to. 90 days, after 90 days, you can go into immigration and renew your visa stamp for up to a total of 180 days. And each time
Okay.
you go in, they give you 30 more days. After 180, if you have not applied for residency and have a receipt showing that, then you do need to leave the country. But
But you
really,
could just hop over to Costa Rica and then come back a few days later, yeah?
you can come
Yeah.
back the same day, unofficially.
Uh-huh.
There are plenty of people here who do that
Yeah.
consistently.
Natalia says, so that means the average house and site will be around 250K or more. Is there a possibility to build a tiny house with a loft that's under 100K? I mean, so Mike, you were saying the home site is about 70.
Right.
So then if you want to spec your own home, what would be a minimum that someone would have to spend to put up a minimalist home
Well,
on the site?
Actually, I have a question to that. Mike, when you said the prices of the homes before, that includes a lot, doesn't it?
Yes, the homes includes the lot. That is correct.
Oh, okay. So the price, I'm sorry, I forget.
The-
What were the prices you were saying? They start at
180.
150, 180.
180 is a home and the lot for a small home, and then 250, 350 kind of numbers. But so right. So if somebody decides they want to build their own home, and so we've talked, we haven't really come up with any designs, but if somebody said I'm going to own this home site for $70,000 and I've got another 30 say to put into a home, we've talked about yurts. We've talked about dome homes. Again, the biggest issue is going to be, will those construction methodologies, whatever some people have said they want to build, the earth bag home, the Cobb home. So again, we're very free and open on the types of construction, the types of design. That's not really an issue. The only critical factor is what the EMF issues, right? So however they're mitigated, right? But if somebody wanted to build a yurt or a dome home or an earth bag home or a Cobb home or something like that, these will all be permitted in this neighborhood. So the architectural design elements really are very free and open. The engineering piece, again, it has to meet seismic standards, the EMF standards, things like that. But yeah, we'd love for someone to come down and find a very affordable way to build, a home that would open up the opportunity for many, many, many more people to come and be a part of this.
So it sounds like 100K, you don't have the solution for it right now, but it sounds like it's definitely within the realm of possibility.
I do believe so. Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Someone is asking if there are any special deals for visiting, discounts, so I assume it's about this slide that I have up. If you come down for this event, are there promotions that you're running or anything like that?
Typically a lot of developers do this, what I call the fly and buy, and it's a super discounted come down. The flip side of that is then, they're making money when they sell you a piece of real estate. And so you go into the boiler room, thumb screws. I mean, you feel like a prisoner in a sales room or something, right? And so we don't do that. We actually go the exact opposite way. It's just a straight fair market price for it. You can, like I said, you don't have to do it. You can stay somewhere else and just come visit for the day, right? But we make it a fair market price. If you decide to own, as a result of the trip, it doesn't have to be on the trip, but even 3 months later, we don't care. You're right. Hey, I came down. I'm ready now. Great. We'll actually rebate the cost of the trip against your home. Because that keeps it really free and fair for everybody, right? So, and that's what we want.
That's great. I didn't know you did that.
We do. Yes.
Okay, Denise has a few questions. I think we've answered some of them already. But okay, one, please speak about fragrance, smoking, noise regulations. That's one. So this is other environmental pollutants in effect. Another question is, if you don't want to own a vehicle, is private transportation available for hire? And I think we got her other questions. So fragrance, smoking, noise, and so forth. Are there any regulations about that in the community in terms of what people are allowed to do?
There would be noise typically. We haven't defined all of that at this point, but our other neighborhoods at Grand Pacifica do have a noise, I don't know.
Codicil.
Quiet hours.
Exactly. But I don't know about the other ones. Grant, Karen, Kathy?
I don't think that we've specifically addressed smoking at this point. In terms of some of these other things, right now, as the document stands, and we're finalizing some of the language in it before we are able to share it with everybody, but it's more about being in a respectful environment. You know, if you choose to use, I don't know, a fragrance, or we would recommend to people to use natural products for cleaning their homes. We'd recommend to people to not use overly fragranced or, you know, dryer sheets or something that could make its way outside and affect your neighbor. What you do inside your own home is generally up to you, but, you know, try and have respect for people, especially on the outside of your home. It's hard to tell somebody like you absolutely can never wear, you know, your grandmother's perfume or something. You get to a point where you're pushing against someone's freedoms there, and there's a line that needs to be drawn.
And then the other question is private transportation available for hire?
Yeah, I think generally, if you can have your own car, it helps because you can get around a little more freely as you want to. But there are definitely drivers around, and a lot of them have their own vehicles, different sizes. Some are small cars, like a taxi, and some are larger, like a Land Rover or Prado type vehicle, depending on what it is that you really need to do. If you're going to go buy a barbecue, you obviously want a bigger vehicle, you know. Or
but
in my wife's case, picking up a piano in Managua. But we have a packet actually for new owners that goes out, and that lists in it a lot of our recommendations for people who you can contact for driving, including ones who have their own car, or if they want to drive your car, you can hire a driver to take your car, and it's a much discounted price.
Yeah, and cabs, I'm going to assume, are incredible, or private drivers are incredibly affordable. Is that, or is that not accurate? Because here, it's shockingly affordable.
Well, I think that I don't know, to be honest.
Okay.
I think generally, like, we'll pay a driver $20 to $25 a day to drive our vehicle, and we'll buy that person lunch. If you're using one of their own vehicles, then it's probably going to be in the range of $80 to $90, depending on the car. But they're paying for the gas and maintenance, and that includes their time for the day. So, you know, if you priced out what it costs to drive your car and put gas in it and what you assume for maintenance on that particular trip, it comes out to about the same price.
Okay. Thank you. Let's see. Question about the split AC. Will all the AC units have an air filter? Will they be HEPA filters? I guess that depends on the owner. Yeah, I mean that's not a regulation.
It would not be. Air conditioning would not be. Dehumidifiers would not be. But Kathy, you're probably most familiar with the split units and what type of air filters are either standard or upgrades in those. I am not.
Yeah, they're usually not HEPA. I mean, those mini splits aren't really designed to be filtration units. They're just conditioning units. So, and I do, you know, strongly suggest people are cleaning them as often as possible. Some people would clean them weekly, some people monthly, but that's going to be the key there. And then if you want to have your own standalone HEPA filtration purification unit in the home, I would strongly recommend that. But the mini splits themselves usually do not have that feature.
Thank you. And then just to clarify, the air is really good there to begin with. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So, okay. Yeah, it's not like you're in downtown Manhattan. So we're making our way through these questions. It's been a really great discussion, by the way. There was one I pulled out of chat earlier. Are there any plans to start an elementary school?
Well, there's actually a small school right now with, I don't know, Grant, you might know the number of kids, 6, 8 kids in it. It's sort of all grades in one that one of our residents has put together. We actually, it's an evolution of a school that was going for a while, and then the woman that was running it left. So I think we're kind of in that stop, start, fits, kind of getting it going. But as we get a few more families with kids, I think it'll lock down and become a permanent thing. But Grant, maybe you could offer a little more detail on that.
Yeah, I mean, school is definitely still going. It's right outside the gate here at a nearby restaurant center. They have a little building in the back specifically being used for that school. And there was a family that moved here just a couple of months ago, and they've got 3 kids with them. And so they're going to that school also, and the wife is volunteering there on a regular basis. So there's definitely something happening. It's not within Grand Pacifica specifically, but a lot of the kids who are going there are Grand Pacifica
And
residents.
is it an English language school?
Yes, as far as I understand. I'm sure that they're teaching them some Spanish also, but it's
Oh,
not.
sure. No, yeah.
Not
That would be helpful.
it's not all in Spanish.
And then Natalia asks, what's planned for lifestyle such as yoga, sauna, pools, community centers, shops, etc.? And Mike, this is a good opportunity, I think, to remind people, Grand Pacifica already exists, right? So
Correct.
So Isla is being built into some part of a larger pre-existing community. So you have some of that stuff already.
We do. And so, I mean, our property, the dimensions of our property are 3.5 miles of Pacific Ocean by about 1 mile deep, right? And so, we've approached this project over the last, I mean, we bought the property in 2000, so 24 years, right? I mean, we've approached this as if we're building a small town, right? With different neighborhoods, and different neighborhoods have different character, different flavor, different people want to be a part of those neighborhoods, right? But yes, so there's a golf course. It's a 9-hole golf course, tennis courts, soccer field, disc golf. We've got a couple volleyball courts. We have restaurants, pool, trying to think. Surfing is phenomenal. Thank you, Karen. Surfing is phenomenal. And
did you mention pickleball?
We do not have pickleball yet.
You got to get pickleball.
Gotta get
I don't care,
pickleball.
but apparently it's very popular.
And well, it is popular, and you're right. We need to have that. Yoga. We have a woman, Lindsay, and her husband Derek on property. They do yoga. I think every day. I don't know, but frequently. I heard Cathy say that she was going to do some yoga. I don't know if she's doing it with Lindsay or not, but anyway. So a lot of activities. There's and this was something that we talked about the other day. I had Cathy and Grant joined me for our conversation with Cobb. We just talked about the kinds of activities that are spontaneous as well. And Grant, you just talk about some of the spontaneous activities that happen there, like all the time, right?
But there's definitely groups of people who love to get together for whatever their passion is. So we've got a WhatsApp group of people who love to golf, and there's somebody out golfing every day, and they'll just randomly say, hey, let's have a friendly tournament in 2 days. Who's in? And then they'll show up and they'll go. The surfers are out almost every single day, as long as there's surf, which there usually is. There's a group that's playing disc golf practically every day. And so, you can find these little groups and tap into them. At the same time, we're always sort of adding additional things here and there. We recently started doing a monthly potluck for the community. And we have some farmers who come and bring us fruits and vegetables every week. And we've started a sort of low-key market there of products that the residents are making themselves. So we're just sort of trying to find different ways for everyone to come together, support each other, and whatever your group is, I'm sure that you'll find them here.
Thank you. And relatedly, but also tying into the car question, Brad asks, what could you get by with just a bike? Are the roads there safe? Now, I'm assuming, especially since security's on bike, that it's very easy to bike in the development. What about when you leave the gate?
Probably, I don't know. I mean, certainly inside Grand Pacific, a bike's a great way to get around. I don't know. I don't see a whole lot of people, biking. I see, we used to see a lot more people biking. Now, I mean, it's kind of crazy. I mean, the amount of wealth in this little municipality has gone up significantly. Now people are on motorcycles and scooters. It's really interesting to see this transition. But in the past, there would be a lot of bicycles. But Grant, I don't know. Maybe I'm missing it, but I don't see as many bikes as there used to be even just a few years ago.
Yeah, I mean, as a resident within Grand Pacifica, if you're just trying to get around, you're trying to get from your house to the restaurant or to go golfing or something, the bicycle is really great. A lot of people have golf carts, and that's really another way that's great to get around inside the property. Outside the property, you do see some people bicycling on the road, but it's usually the locals coming to and from work or going to the store or something. And but you see by far more people on motorcycles than you do on bicycles.
Yeah.
Thank you. And Jonathan asks, is raw milk available nearby?
Yes.
Yes. One of our neighbors, one of the owners in Grand Pacifica owns a farm right outside, and he has a Jersey cow and sells fresh raw milk within the property, and we get it delivered twice a week. And he's also producing other things that he's selling.
But Grant, the competition for raw milk is gonna go up pretty soon. So
That's okay. Any access to real food is always a benefit.
yeah,
Yeah.
I know Jason said he's thinking about getting a couple more dairy cows. So yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, it's
You should.
wonderful. It's wonderful. People look, and I mean, it's just the way of life. There are no regulators stomping down the doors of Jason's place or anywhere saying you can't have raw milk, right? I mean, no, but that's the thing. Sometimes Peter asked the question earlier. I think it was Peter, like safety and not, but my goodness, I love the freedom that Nicaragua affords me as an individual. Our family loved it. The 14 years we lived there, we loved the freedoms and not living in this nanny state with government telling us 1,000 things we're not allowed to do, and then having the regulatory authorities to enforce it, right? I mean, it's the freedom is wonderful. It's refreshing. It's beautiful. Yeah.
So we've been going for about 90 minutes now, and so you all have been very generous with your time. I want to wrap things up, but there's one question here that I wanted to sort of end with, which is, what is the interface or relationship of the community with the local population?
Wow. Strong, solid, wonderful. Grant, I mean, you're engaged all the time there.
I mean, you've said before on some of our other podcasts that we're one of the biggest employers in the region, and that's not just. I mean, Grand Pacifica hires people to do landscape maintenance and construction and run hospitality and things like that, and a lot of the owners here hire staff to help them out because the cost of labor is relatively inexpensive. So a lot of people have housekeepers and gardeners and drivers, for example. And that all goes back out into the community that's surrounding Grand Pacifica. At the same time, we're constantly doing other projects. The Rotary Club has a golf tournament every year, and the primary purpose of that is to raise money to buy Christmas gifts. And last year we gave out almost 2,000 gifts to children in the neighboring communities. We're driving out in dirt roads to neighborhoods we didn't even know existed. There's 50 kids there, and we're giving them all gifts, and they love it. Some of the residents on their own are doing things. They're helping to build baseball stadiums and soccer fields and volleyball courts, and putting lights in them at night so the kids in the local areas have something to do at night rather than just sit around and, I don't know, stare at their phones, right? And so really trying to get out there and encourage people to live a better lifestyle, and you can see it happening just by us de facto being here in the presence.
That's great. Yeah, because here, where there's expat communities, you can tell the difference, right? There's some expat communities that have strong relationships with the surrounding localities, and there are others that are just sort of cut off in their own islands. And the vibe in the ones that are actually integrated with the communities around them is just so much better. There's no resentment flowing between, and it's so that's really great to hear. I'm glad that Teresa asked that question. So
I believe the turtle release interacts the Grand Pacifica community with the greater community outside. That seems to be a really big deal, that yearly
Yes.
turtle release,
Yep.
baby
So-
turtle release.
So yeah, so thank you. In order on my screen from left to right: Cathy, Grant, Mike, and Karen. And a reminder that you will receive a link to the replay of this about 24 hours from now. It'll come tomorrow afternoon from the same email address as you got the Zoom confirmation. That'll also include the information that you see up here on the screen, which is the on-site visit that ECI is coordinating, and the email address to get in touch about it. And I'll also include the link to Cathy's course on healthy travel, because I see a question just came in on that. So again, thank you, everybody. This has been a really fantastic conversation. I learned a lot, and I think it went really well. So thank you.
Thanks for having us. Star.
Thanks for having us, and thanks for the work you're doing.
Yep.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, guys.